Well, hey everyone, and welcome back to Pushing the Limits. Today I have my good friend Cam Calkoen. How are you, mate?
Oh, so good. What a good way to start a week, Lisa.
You're so enthusiastic on a early winter's morning. It's like crikey, Monday morning to boot, and you're happy and all ready to go.
Hearing your voice to bring some sunshine into our lives. So it's great to be here, sharing a story, and looking forward to it.
Right, fantastic. So Cam and I are both on the motivational speaker circuit. We do a lot of speaking to all sorts of groups, don't we, Cam? And I've had the privilege of sharing the stage with Cam a number of times, and he has an incredible story. So I said, mate, you've got to come on the podcast and share your story so we get a few more people learning about this awesome guy called Cam Calkoen. So, Cam, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background, and how did you get here?
Yeah, cool. Well, Lisa, it's been a great honor to share many platforms with you over the years, and I guess we'll get to how I got into my speaking. But as your listeners will maybe be becoming aware, I was born with cerebral palsy, so physical disability which infects the way in which messages travel around my body. But you know what? This morning when I was getting up, I was like, hurdles are an interesting thing, eh? And I often wonder what it would be like if I never knew I had cerebral palsy.
If no one told you.
If no one told me, because in my day-to-day life, no one's telling me, I get up and I live an amazing life. And I think we always have choices as to what we focus on. And so when I was born, and I remember I had a tree house, and it was bigger, more gnarly than any other tree house. And people would come over and would look up at my tree house. It had broken windows, it had a rope swing, it had a big slide. And I had calipers at the time on my legs, and I had a walking frame. And people would say to my mum and dad, do you really let Cam go all the way up there? What if he falls over?
Yeah.
To which mum and dad would respond, but what if he makes it to the top?
Wow, that's a cool.
And that's kind of the environment that I grew up in, and an environment that together we inspired. And there were some times when I did fall over, but for getting back up, we build resilience. And then when I got to the top, I would just dream, and I dream big, Lisa. I dream of traveling, of entertaining, of connecting, of making people feel good, just big dreams. And
when you were born with cerebral palsy, like what, when your parents, because like I think you can owe a lot to your parents, like they instilled in you this attitude of you can do anything. And what were the doctors like with you when you were young?
Yeah, so when COVID happened, and I asked mum and dad, I said, like, what decisions did you make at the point where you heard I've been born with cerebral palsy? Something that there was no guidebook for, something that there was no resources about, this is how you do it. And that's so often what happens when challenges come into our life, right? We feel alone, and we're trying to navigate stuff by ourselves. And so mum and dad said, well, we stay true to the dreams that inspired us to be your parents. So when they wanted to be a parent, they had a dream of a kid that would be active and have a good life and that stuff. And then we were the doctors, right, who were saying, Cam's got cerebral palsy, and this is what cerebral palsy looks like. You will struggle to walk. You will struggle to talk. And then throughout my life, everything when I was to do with the medical system or to do with hospital was about how do we get Cam normal, right? So how do we get him touching his toes? And I'm like, why the heck do I need to touch my toes? How do we get Cam talking normal? Well, this was my normal, right? And so it wasn't until I got older that I realized if they had been giving me ambitious goals, like if you can touch your toes, you can run 100 meters faster. then I would have been way more motivated and
Gotcha.
inspired.
So it's,
And I
you wanted
think
to
that's what
understand.
was missing.
Yeah, you wanted to understand the why. The why.
You need a why.
Yeah.
You always need a why.
Yeah, we do.
And you
a
need
why.
someone in your life who isn't going to stop until you get that why,
Yeah.
until you get that answer you want. And so when I'd be going to school and there was a choice, do we send Cam to the local school that focuses on not much, or do we move? So mum and dad, I got to primary school was awesome, Lisa, you know, I went to a great primary school, and I did things like the egg and spoon race. Dad would put chewing gum on my egg. And then I'd do the three-legged race, and mum would come up to us and say, boys, slow and steady wins the race.
Yeah.
And that was true. Every other kid fell over because they're all going out fast and they want to be number one straight away. And so they don't think about how are we going to do it. Whereas you go slow and steady at something, we'd win. So my childhood was awesome. And when we went to Auckland, because there was no school that suited my needs. And in terms of my needs, I don't mean in terms of having cerebral palsy, but in terms of my dreams and my aspirations. So mum and dad packed up their family home and they moved to Auckland. You know, bought a third of a house for 5 times the price.
Yeah.
But that was kind of the thing, because again, I'd been doing like physios and got to a point where I just didn't want to be going to the hospital every day.
Nah,
no
totally
kid
understand.
wants to be, no one wants to be doing that, right?
No.
And mum had discovered this thing called the Alexander technique here in Auckland, which was, it was all about where the mind goes, the body follows. And it was just cool, man.
Yeah, oh, amazing. And what did you learn there?
Well, but wherever your head goes, be that physically or mentally in your thinking, your body follows,
Well,
right?
that's true.
So how you hold yourself will bring you confidence. So like, as the kid who's different, confidence is what I needed, not in order to be an extrovert, which people think I am. People go, man, you're so extroverted, right? You must be. You're on stages every other day. But Lisa, that's a choice we make in order to create that life that we want to live. And I saw other kids who were different and they'd be getting a hard time. And I'd wonder why they were getting a hard time. And I'd be like, because no one knows their story.
Yeah.
No one knows why he or she looks like that. No one knows why he or she walks like that. And so if I can step outside my comfort zone and into the comfort zones of other people by saying, hey, this is why I walk like I do. This is why I talk like I do. But you know what? This is my dream. I want to play cricket. I want to do cross country.
Wow.
And so when I do cricket and I'd walk up to the kids who had no idea who I was, this was the competing team. And I'd say, look, I can't bowl from the whole width of the cricket pitch because I'm not as strong as you are. So straight away, these kids feel kind of good, like I've made them feel good. But if I can bowl from halfway, we can have a really good game.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's all people wanted to know.
So you went, instead of being shy and introverted, you went the opposite way and went out of your comfort zone to talk to other kids and to explain to them some of the difficulties that you had, and did that sort of empower the kids? Because you know, like when you don't know whether to ask someone if they need help, or you don't know what that person often needs when they have something going on. What is the best way to interact with someone who has cerebral palsy or any sort of a problem?
I think that thing of just trying to see the person for who they are and who they want to be, and being, you know, like not. We're growing up in a pretty PC world, or we're living in a pretty PC world.
Too PC for my life.
I was speaking at I got a message. You know when you get a message from someone you've spoken to after your speech and they say stuff, and they started saying, it was a big construction company here in New Zealand, and he said, Cam, there was a guy in our audience who had an injury to his arm and he couldn't use his arm properly anymore.
Mhm.
After you spoke with us, and we weren't expecting this, but the whole way in which we engaged with that guy became so much easier.
Mhm.
Why? Because and they do things like let's call them, oh man, it must have cost you an arm and a leg to get where you are.
Yeah.
And knowing that they could do that and they could get away with that because it wasn't just a throwaway comment, it's about building a community around and building a culture. And when you create a culture around someone or organization where you can just say what you want to say with the ambition of together we are stronger.
Yeah.
That's really amazing.
And it's the intent, isn't it? It's the intent behind the comment, which is to make a laugh and to just have fun.
Yeah.
And be inclusive in that way, even
Yeah.
though to the outsider that might look like, well, that was a bit rude,
Yeah, but do you know what, Lisa? It's a lot more better than no one saying anything to you, right?
Yeah.
Or where you see those moments in the supermarket where a mum or dad's like, oh, don't look at that person or don't say that. This isn't the world we live in, right? And my challenges might be more obvious than some other people's challenges, but ultimately, everyone's got challenges going on.
Yeah. They sure have.
And I've seen some of the most able-bodied people living the most disabled lives, and I've seen people with no arms and no legs climbing mountains, playing drums, and myself, those doctors who said my biggest challenges would be the way I walk and the way I talk, for reframing that. My walking got me competing all over the world as an athlete, climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, and then becoming a speaker that's spoken all over the world, winning awards and,
Exactly. Yeah, you have been speaker of the year. Climbing Kilimanjaro is no mean feat. You've done awesome things with your athletic career, won gold medals. You've done.
Yeah.
And so instead of, and this is what I love, and this is where I see a little parallel to my story with my mum, right? Is everything that was meant to stop you in your tracks and you're never going to do anything, because we were told that with mum when she had the brain injury initially with the aneurysm and stroke, that she's never going to do anything again. And she was 74, not a child, not a baby. So, and they were like, well, at her age, and there's these limitations that people put on you all the time because you're a certain age, you're a certain color, you're a certain size, you're a certain whatever the heck they decide is your limitation. And then when you go like, hang on, I'm not accepting that limitation. You could be right or you could be wrong, but I'm going to go and find out for myself, and I'm going to work hard, and I'm going to push hard, and I'm going to find somebody who can tell me the next step forward.
Yeah.
And with mum, it was like, like instead of, she is a role model like you are. And she gets up on stage with me on occasion, when we're doing something local or whatever, and she is her story, and she's nervous and she's shy and she's, like all of the things that you would be. Yeah. But she overcomes herself now, and she would never speak before the aneurysm. And she'll get up and, I've had her up in front of 500 doctors at medical conferences telling her story. And you can just see the on their faces, because I tell the story first and they don't know she's sitting in the audience, and then she gets up and she walks up on stage and talks. And that just blows people, right? Like blows their mind. And this is the thing. We told over and over again, when mum had the cancer diagnosis, we were told, within weeks she'll be gone. It's an aggressive CNS lymphoma. They put that limitation on them, one doctor after the other doctor, and there was nothing we can do, and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And, she didn't accept that limitation. She'd come out of those appointments and just go, they don't know. They don't know your people. They don't know what you know. What are we going to do, Lise? Like no pressure.
Yeah.
And I just threw the bus at it. I literally, went to town and threw the bus at it, and we do every single day. We fight every day, just as you do. because when you have something like cerebral palsy or brain injuries or cancer or whatever, you're fighting every day against something. You're pushing shit uphill, but you just keep on going and keep on fighting,
Yeah.
I think
And
that's
where for
powerful.
me, having the dream is so important because only you can see the dream, right? So
Yeah.
for me, and then that becomes the focus. And so when I was a teenager, and becoming a teenager is gnarly, right?
Oh, it's gnarly for everyone, but with cerebral
Totally,
palsy, bloody hell.
totally. So you throw in a spice of whatever, and
Yeah.
it becomes even more gnarly, right? Because
Yeah.
of a perception and because of a world we live in where
Yeah.
we're told that challenges are negative and all of that stuff, right? So I was going, okay, in cricket, everyone's getting faster, stronger, and team sports is getting a bit harder. And so I started dropping out of sport. And then I was like, man, why does my life feel not so good? And I realized because I wasn't pushing myself physically, right? I didn't have that physical goal. And so it's so true that with a fit and healthy body comes a fit and healthy mind. But before realizing that, I got myself into a really dark hole. And I sent quite a bit of encouragement from people that I didn't actually know. In fact, this letter behind me is from Jeremy Wells, and he was
Wow.
on TV show Havoc at the time, and they were 21. And in this letter, it's 2 pages for those who can't see it. He said, difference is a good thing, but people who count in this world look for those who are different. And when you've got a dream and a goal and you've got support, you're able to combine the two. But if you're just getting the support, but you don't know where you want to go, it's pretty hard to embrace that.
Mm.
And
Absolutely.
so
Yeah.
once I realized difference is a good thing, I just started realizing and thinking, well, how can I make it a good thing? And that's when I came across the Paralympics. And no one had told me about the Paralympics as a kid.
Hey.
Assumptions, right? They assume people must know that that's what happens. And so if you've got any kind of information, resources, experiences, you've got to pass that on to people and not assume that everyone knows. And got into my sport and loved it and competed all over the world. And I was living the New Zealand dream, you grow up,
Wow.
you're eating your wheat bix in the morning, seeing
Not so
athletes
sure
on
on
the
that.
box, and you think if you make it in life, you've got to be an athlete,
Yeah.
And I was like, I love this, but I never wanted my competition in life to be determined by my cerebral palsy.
Yep.
That's when I started looking at speaking, because speaking wasn't about living with cerebral palsy and overcoming it. It was about recognizing, as I said before, everyone has challenges, but who do you want to be in this world? And what do you want to focus on? And how do you just make life as awesome as it could be?
Wow. Yeah. And you've had these massive dreams. I think one of the key things about you is you pick the hardest, toughest, craziest thing for anyone who hasn't got cerebral palsy, and then you go and throw cerebral palsy's issues on, and then you go and do it anyway. And tell us about Kilimanjaro, for example. I've
If
contemplated
you want to make a
Kilimanjaro.
difference in this world, you've got to be seen. You've got to be picked up. You've got to showcase
Don't
stuff.
hide under your light under a bushel. Yeah.
So with Kilimanjaro, I met up with a mutual friend of ours, Mike Allsop, and he shared a mutual connection. And he said, Cam, have you ever thought about climbing Kilimanjaro? And I was like, no way, man, come on. And it wasn't part of my bucket list. I wasn't into doing anything that was over 200 meters. That's what I did as an athlete. I was a sprinter. I did 100 and 200 meters. My good friend Lorenzo Pizzoni had picked me up when we were at school and took me for a run. And
wow.
And
cool.
He was running and I was just focusing on my survival, like he could talk and I was like, okay, man, you do the long stuff, I'll do the short stuff. But
he's
when he
exceptional.
came along, I just imagined singing Africa by Toto on the top of Kilimanjaro.
Love it.
And so that became the goal. That became the vision, Lisa. That was it. It wasn't about climbing a mountain. It was about, man, I've heard about this song all my life. How cool it to be up there. And then I was like, how do I keep motivated? Because this is a goal that I've never had. It's not a sprinter. It's not speaking. This is something that's just come up on a Tuesday morning conversation. And I've said yes to it. And I know what happens before. You say yes to a lot of stuff, and then life happens, right?
Yeah.
And so as quickly as I said yes, I needed to make this real by contacting people and saying, hey, I'm going up Kilimanjaro. Do you want to come with me? So I contacted 20 people, and 19 of them said yes. And
Really? That's insane.
19 said yes. Dreams inspire people, right? Goals inspire people.
They do. You know, when you're on a mission and you're enthusiastic about something, you know, I've experienced this with the ultra marathons too. People get on board. They don't know what they're in for, but they're like, this is cool. You know, we're on a mission, and they do. Yeah, I totally understand that. But 19 out of 20 is a good strike rate.
We don't need to know much about it. They're just like, okay, cool, let's do it. And so, and it was pretty cool. It was awesome.
But that altitude and you know, and that's a long trek. That's, you know, days and days, and I know what altitude's like. 2 days
down.
Yeah,
5 days out, 2 days down.
You can't breathe
because of that altitude.
Yeah,
you know,
it's incredible.
It's not long. I think it's something like you're doing about 60 kilometers total. It's just on 5,000 meters, but because of that, as you've experienced that altitude stuff, and that's what got me. So everyone, our guides were saying slow, you know, like Mum did with the egg and spoon race, three-legged race. Slow and steady, slow and steady, slow and steady. And you see all these really fit people coming past you, you know, and they were the ones who were coming back, you know, a day
Didn't make it
later, having not made it, because every single day we'd see like 32, 33 helicopters taking people off the mountain with altitude sickness, right?
Wow, that many. Wow.
I think if we knew that, I wouldn't have had 19 people with me, you know?
Yeah, people don't know what they're in for. I mean, altitude is brutal. It is brutal. And but you have to go really slow. I mean, that was one of the problems I had in the altitude races that I did, like Manaslu. We went around Manaslu and we were going twice as fast as what's recommended. And that's twice as fast of a problem when you're going to altitude. And we ended up with 9 rescues out of 20. How many people? I think we had 20, 25, and we had 9 people rescued. You know, like it was brutal.
And so how were you not one of the 9?
Oh, I was close. So to be honest, because I'm an asthmatic, and you know, like you, I've had limitations on things like cold and mountains. That's why I ran deserts, because I was hopeless in the mountains, and I was like, I'm not letting that limitation stop me. I'm going to go, and I always wanted to be in the Himalayas and do stuff. So I was like having to go. And I've done a couple of things up in the Himalayas, but this one, the temperature's like minus 20 degrees, and you're up at 5,800 meters. I think we got up to was the highest point over the pass, and it was brutal. I was on the edge of my abilities. And then I threw in a back injury as well, and I was on something called tramadol to try to deal with the pain, and that made me psychotic up at 5,000 plus meters. I never told that story, actually. I was a bit of a crazy Looney Tune there for a while. I was trying to jump off cliffs and stuff because the tramadol at altitude wasn't a good combo. But yeah, when you go up that fast, you're not recommended to go up that fast. And that other one that I did in the Himalayas and the Indian Himalayas, that was, again, we were going up from 3,600 to 5.8 to 3.6 to 5.8 within a 60-hour time period. So that was the brutality of those ones, was we weren't taking the 10 days to go up. Yeah, we were just, you know, we were running up them, down them, back up there, and just that was brutal. Gnarly. But you know, like Kilimanjaro's got other gnarly things. You're in the middle of Africa for starters, you know.
It's a bit it's not a pretty mountain. I mean, it's about like climbing Ruapehu, which is pretty to look at, but no, you haven't got stuff around you, you know? It's not like you're down in the Southern Alps where you've got beautiful mountains.
Yeah.
You know, so with that, you notice a hike quite quickly.
Yeah.
And I got to day 3 when my altitude sickness started to kick in.
Wow.
And I should have known it was coming because I noticed that I'd stopped drinking.
Yeah.
I noticed my headache coming on and that I should have been drinking. And then all of a sudden, I couldn't even speak with people without wanting to vomit. And they stuck,
SpO2
on my finger to just make sure my
oxygen,
my blood levels are okay.
Yeah.
Thankfully, they were, because I remember thinking to myself, I don't want to come back to this mountain ever again. I've got one chance, one opportunity. I'll never have these people with me again.
Yeah.
I just got to do it. And thankfully, maybe 20 minutes later, the whole group had turned around to go down a couple 100 meters to just reclimatize for the. And then we get to base camp, we get to the camp of the final ascent, and the guides come into my room and they say, okay, everyone's leaving at 12 midnight.
Yep.
And I said, why are we doing this part at midnight?
Yeah.
Everything else we've done at daytime.
Yeah.
And they said, if you saw where you had to go, you wouldn't want to do it.
That's a good reason to do it.
But as yours also, we can see the sunrise, right? So everyone's leaving at 12, but Cam, you're going to leave at 11:30 because we know this is going to be really tough on you and we want to get you out there.
Yeah.
And so I just said, okay, go, you know, I make people happy. I'll do it. And so I take to the mountain like a steam train, Lisa. I'm going up there. My guide says, hey, slow down. He says, you want to beat all your mates up here, don't you? And I was like, hell yeah. But, you know, like, I've gone through my tough day. They're all here because of me. Some of them are going to experience altitude sickness tonight. I need them to know that I'm ahead of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he looked up and he said, Cam, beautiful full moon, beautiful moon. He said, turn off your headlight. You don't need it. And they won't be able to see where you are. You can see where they are. Right? It was like that game Lemmings. I just see this big line of people coming up behind me. And I ended up getting up there 45 minutes before the rest.
You're kidding. You're faster than them.
Faster. Even faster. Mate. I got over. I was like, guys, I'm freezing my ass off up here. You know,
why are you taking you so long?
I took you so long. And it was just those experiences. And then coming back down and not being prepared to come down. You know, everyone was focused on you get to the top.
Yeah. Right? People forget you got to get home again.
You forget you've got to get home. And so you've just had your biggest release of adrenaline.
Yeah.
All your food's gone, all your water's gone. Because
you're exhausted. Yeah.
Remember, we've still got another whole day to get down, 2 days to get down. 2 days. And that was actually the challenging. That was the more challenging bit because you're more fatigued. You've just had a big.
You've got no goal anymore.
You've got no goal.
Yeah, you've done your goal, and it's. And it's even more heartbreaking if you haven't made the top and you've got to get back down. That's even harder, I think. But at least you've achieved that. How did it, like? I'd be interested to know, like, because when I was up at altitude, those few times that I did it, my brain wasn't working. Like I was hypoxic. You know, like I didn't have enough oxygen to the brain, so you're actually damaging your brain. Were you concerned about doing more damage? You know, like with the cerebral palsy, that there was a risk of more issues after that? Because I've had issues. Like it took me a year to get over the one I did in India, like the hypoxic brain concussion.
So someone told me about that before I left, and I was like, oh, well, you know, I don't, you know, it's called a Congo mountain, but you don't want to come up.
Brain damage.
You don't want to be paying for it for the rest of your life, right? And so I guess I heard that, but I trusted my guides. I trusted the team that I was doing it with. I knew that they were going to get me up there and down there safely. And I could see that, I could see how quickly they'd be sending people back down if they needed
if
to.
they weren't up to.
And I think that's just part of it, right? You trust the team you've got around you, and especially if it's something that you're not used to doing, try and build that team. And
and people that are willing to really, help you, that's what I think I was blessed with too, with a lot of the ultra marathons that I did. I had amazing teams, on some of them you're on your own across the bloody desert in the middle of the night somewhere freaking the hell out. But other times you had crews, and when you had crews, it was just like, well, this is easier than some of those other stuff I've done. So this has got to be, and the links that some of my crew people went to in different various races was just mind-blowing, and the respect that you have for them, because you're the one that gets the medal around your neck, but they're the ones that got you there. Like you realize it's a team effort. It's it's a team effort. So that was Kilimanjaro, and like you've been speaker of the year like that. I've never been speaker of the year, and I've been doing it for a while.
I know you've been one of my idols for as long as I've been doing it. When I got into this business, and I'd be like, who do I look up to? And everyone would be like, Lisa Tumity. And so jumping on your website and learning stuff and just, and being inspired by a lot of people and going, man, if you can tell your story well and you can package it up in a way that's got good takeaways. So with having my speech impediment, that was one of the big reasons where I could have said no. But what I did is I took all the energy that I put into my athletics, I stopped my athletics, and I pivot into the focus for my speaking.
Wow.
And I realized that if I knew what I was going to say, I'd have one less thing to worry about, because you need to value people's time. And so how do I make sure my audience is comfortable with me? How do I make sure they're listening to me? So I'd always start off with kind of taking the piss out of myself a little bit and making sure people were laughing, because as soon as you do that, you break down barriers, just as that kid going and stepping outside the comfort zone.
Wow.
And say, how are you up to? How are you? What are you up to? Making people feel good. And it was the same recipe from a school playground would be on these stages. And I was invited to be an ambassador for a disability resource center, which was just a dream on a bit of paper. And it was a $4 million dream, and we needed $4 million really quick. And we realized that people were getting paid to be inspired, and if we were giving that inspiration for free, maybe they'd return the favor in the way of donation. So what we do is we'd go to someone's big fancy house, we'd invite 200 people along, we'd have all these auction items, but before the auction, I would speak for 10, 15 minutes. And then people would come up to me and say, hey, Cam, can you come and do that for my school, my business, my charity?
Wow.
And then someone told me about bureaus in New Zealand, and I was like, wow, you mean you can actually make this kind of part of a job or a job? And so I'd contact people, and it was getting a while to get traction. And I thought, what is the difference between a lot of the people that are speaking and where I am? And I realized that a lot of the people had achieved amazing things, pinnacles, goals in their life. And what would it be like if I made my voice my pinnacle? So if I actually focused on being a speaker and learn and packaging up my life in a way that could give value to people. But I needed competition, because that's what I learned as an athlete. You can only get faster if you've got the best people around you. And so I went to New York City.
Oh,
and
wow.
I don't know anyone in New York, but Frank Sinatra said, if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere.
Love it.
And I used the Kiwi network. In fact, one of the good guys, a guy called Joel, and he's from Taranaki originally.
Oh, wow.
And he was the vice president at NBC Universal, which and the Paramount Pictures and in MTV and Nickelodeon, and I ended up speaking there. And I came back to New Zealand and I said, hey, I was speaking with Viacom, I was speaking with NBC Universal. And from there, so we went from doing like one speech a year to multiple speeches a week.
Wow.
Not just in New Zealand, not just in America, but all over the world.
Yeah, that's amazing. And the how prolific you are, like how many stages you get on a year is just like, wow, you know, like in the places that you've been to and the things that you've, you know, like it's pretty next level. It's pretty next level. And I know that because I've been, you know, speaking for a long time, and you're at the pinnacle, and you're very, very good at what you do. And you know what, it comes, you know, like, a lot of speakers that I've heard, they sound very canned. They sound as if they've said it 100 times. They know what they're saying. And of course, you know, to a certain degree, you have to have your speech prepared and things. Yeah. But you've never lost that genuine, when you come in the room, people know you're there, and it's just this energy that goes ahead of you. The enthusiasm and the energy and the intent is louder than your words even. You know, when you get up on stage, it's like, and here I am, and I'm happy. You just blow it out because of that enthusiasm. That enthusiasm just comes over. And how do you maintain that? How do you maintain that through life in general now? Like not just on the stages, but you know, because, you know, we all go through shit and we all have horrible things happen to us. And we've, you know, how do you get up in the morning when stuff is not going right and put on that amazing, powerful personality that you are? Yeah,
because you're right. Life is up and down, swings and roundabouts, and you remind yourself of those stories as well. So you remind when it's not going so well. And one of the greatest privileges that we have as speakers is we give the opportunity to stop and reflect on our life to a degree that a lot of people don't, because a lot of people are waking up focused on today, tomorrow, and maybe the future. They've got ambition. But not many people are stopping to go, hey, what happened when I was 5 and I was learning to tie my shoelaces? You know, not many people have built a story around that, and that's where our resilience comes from. And so I have that. So that's why I encourage everyone to take time to really reflect on what's got me to where I am. What are those breakups that I've had in the past that make me realize that I am resilient now? What are those moments of hardships I've experienced that prove that I can give her this hardship too? Wow. And another thing I do is I had a school principal once, and he'd say, talk to me when you're sad, but don't forget to talk with me when you're happy.
Love it.
Because when we hear what people enjoy and what makes them feel good, then we know how to give them more of that, right? And we know how to unite. So I'll often wake up and I'll send a message to people that I haven't messaged for a while, saying, hey, you're awesome. How are you doing? How are you feeling? What's going on? I love you. And so they're going to respond with something very similar. I love you too, Cam. Thank you. There you are, man. Yeah. And so I have that. And then I make sure you know, even before this, I didn't go for a walk. I didn't get to the gym, but I made sure I opened my window in my office and stuck my head out and just breathing that fresh air.
Yeah. And just being in the moment, and being in, you know, getting outside or getting a moment of, you know, like this is the thing with you, I think, Cam, is that you haven't let the resilience, that word resilience, which is used a lot now. But when you hit down and you push down, you have learned, because of the struggles that you had early on, that you just have to get back up again the next day and go again and go again and go again. And that sets you up. And I think a lot of our youngsters now are not learning resilience. They're not learning to fail. They're not learning to have to overcome. And when we mollycoddle our kids and we wrap them in cotton wool, and we don't let anything bad happen to them, and we don't let them learn and make mistakes and, run into a few brick walls, albeit we try to do it, to sort of keep them physically safe, but pushing the limits of those types of things and learning to fail early and get back up again is something. If we take away from them that, then when something happens, in teenage years, or something like COVID and the lockdowns, man, that just absolutely annihilated it. So many people. And if we don't have that, well, I've been through worship before, I'll get through this too somehow, then we've stolen a piece of that, like it's really important that kids learn the hard way. And like even with, when I'm working with mum and people are looking at, if you just look at me and the way I operate with her, if you followed me around for a day, you would think, oh my God, what a bitch. Like she just makes her mum do all these hard things. She won't help her up out of the chair. She doesn't, help her change, like she sits there and watches her and barks orders. If I don't let her struggle, if I don't let her brain work it out, what muscles to use to engage, to stand up, then she will never walk. She would never have gotten out of that wheelchair. But because I had that tough love thing, and I still do it every single day, and people are like, man, why don't you give your mum a rest? And I'm like, because to rest is to die. To rest, and a person with the situation that she is in and the stuff that she's got going on in her brain, for her to sit down all day and do nothing is the end, And if I left her for 2 weeks, she would be in a wheelchair, and it would be all downhill from there. So I don't let up ever. And it's really hard because I have to be that relentless motivator. I have to push and pull and really struggle. And I get a lot of flack from other people, just like, why don't you just let her have that piece of cake? Why don't you let her get up, help her get up, or help her do this and that? And why are you so tough? And it's like, because I love her. And I don't want her to decline. And she cooperates, like if she said no, then that would be no. But she knows underneath, she'll moan a little bit.
It's the whole thing where if it was easy, everyone would be doing it, right? And so you look at that in terms of goals and dreams of ambitions, but you also look at that in terms of life. And that there's a lot of people in your mum's situation that are not where your mum is, because that's way too hard to do that. And so no one else gets to write the story of your life or give a speech of your life, and we've got to be the people that do that. And so we've got to have those dreams that are true to us. And that's when I'm with young people. Your goal isn't what your mum wants you to do. It's not what dad wants you to do. It's not what your mate's doing. It's that thing that ignites you. It's that thing that you're going to believe in more than anyone else, because no one else knows no one knows that Cam is going to plan to go off to New York when no one's telling him he can't speak, right? But no one could take that away from me. And that's where things happen. And I meet parents, and they say, I've wrapped my kid up in too much cotton wool. He's got a funky arm. I didn't realize he could drive. I was like, dude, I know your kid wasn't born how you were expecting that kid to be born, but your life can still be incredible. And you've got to teach people that falling down about one little step is okay, because, we alluded to it earlier. If you don't have those falls, what happens when you fall off a cliff, You've got to build your strength. You've got to build that resilience. And some kids, a lot of kids of all abilities aren't given that. They're not going up tree houses. I'm so fortunate for being a kid in the 1980s and 1990s. I do think life was easier.
Yeah, it was. and me too, I was born in the 70s, and it was just a beautiful childhood. We were out all day. Parents didn't even know where we were half the time. We were,
Yeah.
fishing, climbing trees, getting into
Yeah.
trouble, doing all the stuff that kids should be doing, and it's just, I wish that for this generation too, without bloody phones and everything that they we have to be stuck to. I've got a lady, I should say a lady here who, Erica Perry, and Erica was born, I've forgotten the name of her actual syndrome that she has, but she has very short arms and a lot of disabilities and facial differences and so on. And she is the most amazing woman. Like she's just like you. I'm not having any of these limitations, and she's made herself to go forward out to talk to people and to get out of her comfort zone and to do speaking and to do, this is a few years ago now, but I helped her train up for a 10K and then a half marathon.
Yeah, cool.
And she did it, and it was tough, man. Really brutally tough. And not that she wants to do that every year, but she did it, and she got fitter, and she lost weight, and she felt powerful, and she felt strong, and it was an incredible experience for me to witness, and her tenacity, absolutely mind blowing. Where other people would hide in a corner, and when Erica comes in the room, Erica's there. She's not shy. She's not like, I don't look like everybody else, or I've only got 2 fingers on my arms, or, whatever the case is. She's just out there doing it. Finds a way to get through things. And I totally admire her. I think she's just epic, just absolutely amazing. And those are the people that are my role models.
Yeah.
Those are the people that I look up to, because then, when you have your moan about your day, like we all do, and then you're like, get over yourself.
Perspective, perspective is power.
I love that. Perspective is power.
The more we can do to gain perspective, the better. And so people will also complain about stuff like social media. But to a degree, you can also choose who you're listening to, who you're watching, who you're following, how awesome is that? But again, it's realizing I think we can be a lot more in control of the design of our life than we're taught to believe or lead to believe.
But how do you bring the discipline every day that's required to overcome the limitations? It's not the word I want. The issues that you have. How do you, because you have to train harder. You have to go. It's harder for you to speak. It's harder for you to walk. How do you bring that discipline of an athlete? And is it because you've been an athlete now for so long that's part of your psyche?
I've been an athlete when I was in most development, teenage, early 20s, and it was full time. So I often say to my mates, how come we go to coffee shops on a Saturday rather than, I thought that was a normal thing for teenagers to do. And then I realized that teenagers weren't waking up until midday because we'd be training at 7 a.m. on a Saturday morning, which meant we weren't going to the parties the night before. But I also made sure that I wanted my training to be something that was inspiring me. So I went out and found the best athletes of the time, people like Donald McDonald and James Mortimer and James Dolphin. And that's who I trained with, because I wanted to be surrounded by people that were the best of the best. We're not talking about the best of cerebral palsy, but people who had woken up and gone, I want to be the best athlete, because that's who you've got to learn from. And so when I have sticky situations with my speaking or my momentum to go on and speak, I learn from other speakers, and I look at what they've done, and I remind myself that there's beauty in creating your own story.
Yeah. And do you fear, like mistakes and failing, and how was your attitude to that when you don't do so well, or
Yeah, I'm really tough on myself. And there's another thing, I don't make excuses, and so I'll be like, I'll finish a talk and I'll be reviewing that talk for the whole drive home, and this is where that energy comes from that you mentioned about, you're delivering a speech so often, but you're always looking at how to fine tune it. And so when things don't go well, who do I have to talk to? Am I looking after myself? Oh shit, I haven't been to the gym for a week. Maybe that's partly why I'm not feeling good and why I'm not performing to the best of my ability.
Yeah.
I didn't have breakfast. Oh, I'm not eating right, and all these things. But you've got to have a discipline. And again, that's why my whole thing is dream big, achieve more, because in having those big dreams, that's when you'll go, okay, I need to be sleeping as well as I can, eating as well as I can, getting fitness, but not being tough on yourself if you slip up from time to time.
Yeah. So it's a mixture of not beating yourself up, but analyzing how you did and
analyzing yourself real hard. Like I'll be way harder on myself than anyone else will be, because for me there's no excuses. And that's the other thing. You can't live life thinking I've got an excuse. My favorite days of training were those days where it was raining, hailing, cold. I love those days, because if you can get through that day, you can get through anything. And who knows, it may well be like that on the day of competition.
Yeah, exactly. That is just so that is so true. I mean, Cam, I think you're a total inspiration because of just your attitude and the way that you get up and you show up in the world. And I hope that people listening to this, walk away with a like, well, shit, get your own shit together, and push yourself outside your comfort zone and take on big challenges and have a vision. Because when you have a vision of where you're going, in my case with ultra marathons, I'd take on the biggest, scariest races. I would have no idea how I was going to get there. I was also not a very good athlete, very below average, asthmatic, broke my back. I had a million reasons why I shouldn't be doing what I did. And I'd just take on the challenge and then work it out along the way. And sometimes I fell on my face, like big time.
Yeah.
And that's part of it, isn't it?
That's part of it. So I spoke with Main Fate a few years ago, and they gave me the book, and the title of the book is Ready, Fire, Aim. And and the two words, fire and aim, are often what I reflect on. Like, and we can be trying so often to get something perfect before we do it.
Yeah.
What about just doing it and then making it perfect as you go?
I love that.
If you've got that desire to be perfect, if people go, oh, you can't be perfect. No, but you can be the best version of yourself that you can be, right? And for me, that's perfect. And so that best version is what you see yourself being, but you will not get there if you're thinking, I'm not ready to go right now. I haven't quite got my speech perfect as a voice. Well, just go. Just go. Kilimanjaro worked, in fact, all the best parts of my life. I only just realized this the other day. All the best parts of my life have come from just going. So school athletics came because next week was the school athletics day, and you've got to pick your name down, right? Your name's down your there. You can't get out of that. Raising money to build yes. Yeah, cool, we'll do it. And on the day that we went into the ASB Trust to ask them for $1 million,
bloody hell,
beautiful presentation, and our PowerPoint had in charge the computer, right? So we get there and we've got no presentation, and we've got a board. It takes you a year to get in front of this board. And
oh no,
we got there and I just spoke. I just spoke. And it was the first standing ovation I ever got. First standing
Wow.
ovation I ever got. And it was the only standing ovation where I got $1 million because of it. Right?
It's amazing.
And so it was trusting your story, trusting that your life is your message. And again, it was just shooting and aiming. Same with Kilimanjaro, and same with when I decided to be a full-time speaker. I've been doing this full-time now for 8 years, and I set up Cam Calkoen Limited 12 years ago, maybe more now, can't quite remember. And it was the same thing. It was about going, this is the focus. So on day one, which was the 1st of January, 8-9 years ago, I had no other job, nothing else. I'd given myself 6 months to segue out of the job I had to being a full-time speaker. And in those 6 months, I'd drive around Auckland and I'd look high and I'd look and I'd read all the expensive magazines and all the names I saw. I'd write them all down because they would be my clients one day, right?
Wow.
And then I just made sure that I called 20 people a week. I sent out 40 emails a week, and I did that. I had an office. I had a place that I needed an office that wasn't home because I needed to be there from 7 till 7, 12 hours just going, how do we make this? How do we make this happen? I'd made $70,000, was the best I'd ever made in my job before. Maybe more like 60. So I realized that all I had to do to realize I could make my speaking work was make $60,000 or more. And I needed to let the world know that I was a speaker, and it was simple numbers. If I could do 60 speeches at $1,000 a speech, I would make what I've made and what was my original job. And so that's how,
That's how you started.
That's how I got started. It was, I'd be going up to other speakers and I'd be like, oh, we don't get out of bed for less than $7,000. And then in the years to come, I'd be like, how are you so busy, Cam?
Yeah.
It was because I'd get out of bed, I'd do it, and then it became math. So I was like, well, if it was $1,000 a speech, next year I can make it $2,000 a speech. And if I still do 60 speeches, I've doubled it. And then the year after 3 and 4, and we just built it up, right? And that was just in a big, but it came through that resilience, pushing the limits, talking with people.
Absolutely. Just incredible. I'll
doing it. From so, yeah.
And you know what you've got, which I don't have so much, is focus. Like I end up doing 10 businesses and running around like a blue ass fly, and you've focused on one thing, and that's done it to the nth degree. And not to say that that's the only way. Like I think there's advantages to having a bit of ADHD.
And you need it. I mean, so this is all what's got me to where I am now. But where I am right now is I need to be flying around like a blue eyes fly to discover what's next, right? Because I've done one thing really well, but there's a future there as long as I do what I do really, really well, which is.
But what's next for Cam?
But what's next? How do you impact hundreds of thousands of people a year and make sure that in the years to come, I've got something to support me, right? So what does the bigger picture now look like? And you only get there through going, I'm going to drive, someone said, drive to length of New Zealand and speak at every school that you can speak at this summer. Okay, cool. So we're working on making that happen, right? I spoke with someone who was running incentives and workshops. So, okay, how do we start looking at making these things happen now?
We'll talk off here.
Young people with disabilities that need this stuff. How do I now package up this experience for them? So,
and there's just so many levels. Cam, you've been absolutely wonderful today. We'll definitely talk off air about all that stuff because, definitely there's more to come. but you're just an inspiration. Thanks so much for sharing your story with the community today. And I hope that everybody's going to pull their britches up and be a bit more like awesome Cam Calkoen. Thank you so much,
Awesome.
Cam.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.